Riker Vale stepped onto the rusted deck of Tradespire K-17, the stench of ozone and burnt coolant clinging to the air like a bad memory. He adjusted his coat against the draft curling through the exposed seams of the station, fingers twitching, near the old plasma pistol holstered at his side. Around him, broken traders and desperate smugglers moved like ghosts, too tired to care, too armed to ask questions. He hated places like this. Too quiet, too cornered. The buyer, a corpulent Selnari, with scaled lips and gold-threaded robes, waited in a shadowy booth marked by flickering glyphs. Riker dropped the crate of processed gravity on the table without ceremony. The crystals pulsed faintly, worth a fortune on any civilized world. He crossed his arms and waited. The Selnari's eyes narrowed. Market collapsed. Price dropped. 40%. You'll get half. Riker's jaw clenched. We agreed. Full payment, no renegotiation. You can take the loss or take her. The buyer gestured. Two guards dragged something forward. No, someone. A woman bound in a dull restraint collar, her wrists chained in front, face hidden beneath a dark cowl. He didn't move. She's rare, the dealer purred. Genetically enhanced. Kalati stock. Agile, silent, obedient. If you don't want her, someone else will. Riker looked at the figure, unmoving, silent. The air shifted around her. Too still, too dangerous. I don't buy people. Then, leave with nothing. He weighed the words like iron. Fuel was low, supplies worse. Turning his back meant starvation, or worse. His eyes locked on the woman again. Not a single tremble. No plea. She simply stood, patient as death. I don't like this, he muttered. You'll like starving less. He exhaled sharply. Fine. But this doesn't square us. The dealer smiled with yellowed teeth and tossed him a control chip. Riker caught it without looking and stepped toward her. What's your name? He asked. Her head lifted slowly, revealing sharp features half hidden behind strands of dark metallic hair. Her skin shimmered faintly with a bronze-silver hue, and her eyes, unblinking, alien, calculating, met his without emotion. You may call me whatever you like, she said. Her voice was smooth, precise, lacking any trace of fear. He frowned. Not what I asked. She leaned closer, voice barely a whisper. But I don't answer to men who think they've purchased me. His fingers tightened around the chip. We're leaving. He turned without waiting for her compliance. She followed, movements fluid and quiet, chains clinking softly against the metal floor. They passed drunken miners, silent mercs, broken-eyed runaways. No one glanced twice. Once inside the docking bay, Riker opened the ramp of his ship, Wraithburn, a lean craft patched with mismatched armor and salvaged plating. She paused before entering, then stepped aboard without hesitation. Don't touch. Anything, he said as the hatch sealed behind them. She tilted her head, expression unreadable. Wouldn't dream of it. He activated the engines, casting one glance back. The Selnari dealer was gone, but his guards still watched from the shadows, weapons idle but eyes hungry. In the cockpit, the hum of systems filled the silence. She stood behind him, uninvited, watching. Not docile, not curious. Watching like a predator studies terrain. He didn't look back. There's a spare cabin. You stay there. No wandering. Her tone was almost amused. As you wish, Captain. The ship lifted off, breaking from the station's lock with a shudder. He guided them away from the drift and set a course into the Teleron Rift, uncharted, unstable, and well off any patrol path. Only once they cleared range did she speak again. You don't know what you've taken, human. His eyes remained on the console. A liability. A storm, she corrected softly. And you're standing in its path. He turned then, just enough to meet her gaze. No fear, no humility. just calm, absolute control. He said nothing, but, in the silence that followed, Riker Vale had the distinct crawling feeling that he hadn't just accepted cargo. He'd invited something far worse onto his ship, and it had just smiled. The stars outside blurred into long, stretched filaments as Wraithburn accelerated through the Teleron rift. Inside the cockpit, only the hum of the engine and the quiet. Clicks of Riker's fingers on the controls broke the stillness. The ship drifted between pockets of interference and volatile magnetic fields, each one a potential death trap. He liked flying through chaos. It kept him focused. Behind him, she lingered near the navigation display, silent and watchful. "You're supposed to be in the spare cabin," he said without turning. "You're supposed to be in control of your ship," she replied smoothly, examining the star chart without hesitation. He didn't answer, but his jaw flexed. She circled the console, her eyes scanning the displays with unsettling ease. "Your right stabilizer's been patched 3 times. The last job was rushed." Riker glanced at her briefly. "You have an eye for engineering now?" "I have an eye for flaws." Her gaze flicked to the thruster readout. "And you've got a fuel leak." He tapped the diagnostics. She was right. Barely a whisper of pressure loss, enough to become a problem if ignored. His lips thinned. She moved like someone familiar with military-grade schematics, not chained obedience. Every gesture was deliberate, efficient, laced with unspoken training. "You were watching me fly?" he asked. She gave a faint smile. "You were making mistakes." Riker stood, folding his arms as he leaned against the bulkhead. "You're not. Some trafficked noble, are you?" "I never claimed to be." He studied her more closely. Now, under proper lighting, the fine lines along her jaw weren't decorative. They were subdermal enhancements. Her posture had a soldier's balance. The collar around her neck wasn't locking her in. It was keeping something dormant. "You were military." She turned her face slightly, enough for one silver eye to meet his. "I was precision." The words hung there. No elaboration, no apology. Why lie to them? Pretend to be docile if you're so lethal. Because docile things get traded. Dangerous ones get destroyed. She walked past him, fingers grazing the edge of the console. "You'll want to reroute the starboard coolant feed. It's about to misfire." He checked the panel again. Another warning light blinked to life. She hadn't even touched a terminal. "How do you know my ship so well?" he asked. "I pay attention." He watched her as she moved toward the corridor, pausing at the threshold. "I'm not your enemy, Riker," she said. "But I'm not harmless either." He stepped into her path. "Then what are you?" She tilted her head. "A debt waiting to be repaid." Before he could question her further, the comm system crackled violently, and the proximity alarm lit up in angry red pulses. 3 vessels appeared on sensors. Small, fast, armed, unmarked signatures. No beacon IDs. Interceptors, Riker muttered. She didn't ask permission. She was already in the weapons seat, fingers flying across the interface. "What are you doing?" he snapped. "Ensuring we don't die." The lead attacker fired. Wraithburn lurched under the hit, shields dropping to 86%. Riker dove for the pilot's chair and banked hard, skimming an asteroid cluster. Plasma trails lit up behind them. "She's not built for dogfights," he shouted. "Then stop flying like she is. Give me angle and time. I'll handle them." He executed a wild spin through a debris cloud. She targeted the rear ship and fired. A clean pulse hit its thruster and sent it spiraling into nothingness. "How did you—" "I told you. Precision." Another shot grazed their hull. Kaleth adjusted shield harmonics without blinking, shifting coverage exactly where needed. Riker swore under his breath and redirected power to engines. "You were Navy," he said. "No." Her voice was calm. "I was something older." A second interceptor arced into their blind spot. She anticipated it. Twin blasts from the lower cannons sliced through its cockpit, vaporizing the pilot before impact. "That was a neural prediction shot," Riker said, eyes wide. Kaleth simply reloaded the capacitor. "One remains." The final ship flanked them. Riker threw Wraithburn into a nosedive, grazing the edge of a gravity rift. The pursuer followed. Kaleth waited, timing the spin. She released a reverse pulse EMP into the distortion field. The rift amplified it, frying the enemy ship's systems. Instantly, it drifted lifeless behind them. Silence returned. Riker exhaled and leaned back in the pilot's seat. "Who the hell are you?" She rose slowly from the console, the glow from the screen casting sharp shadows across her cheekbones. "I was a ghost in a palace that no longer exists, a tool designed for execution. But they turned on me." He didn't speak. He couldn't. She stepped closer. "You accepted me as cargo. You thought I was silent property." He met her gaze. "That was before you hijacked my ship and saved our lives. I warned you," she said softly, "that you were standing in a storm." He looked down at the scorched control panel, then back at her. "What kind of storm?" She leaned close, her breath brushing his jaw. "The kind that never forgets." Who tried to chain it? Then she walked away, leaving Riker alone in the glow of the consoles, surrounded by questions and the echo of a truth too dangerous to deny. The outer rings of Novar Station flickered beneath Wraithburn as Riker engaged docking thrusters. The outpost floated along a fractured asteroid belt, barely held together by gravity locks and rusted ambition. It wasn't on any official chart, which made it ideal for fugitives, smugglers, and beings with too much blood on their hands. The moment they docked, Kaleth disappeared into the cargo hold without a word. He didn't stop her. Riker shut down the engines, checked weapon seals, and ran a diagnostic sweep out of habit. The silence inside the ship stretched like tensioned wire. He moved through the corridor, past humming conduits and patched bulkheads, toward the storage bay. He found her crouched behind a supply crate, removing the outer layer of her black tunic. Beneath it, scars crisscrossed her back, some old, silvered with time, others fresh, angry, and red. She didn't flinch as she peeled off a bloodied eye bandage near her shoulder. "You didn't say you were hurt," he said quietly. Kaleth didn't turn. "You didn't ask." He crouched beside her and opened the med kit mounted on the wall. She eyed him briefly, then returned to disinfecting the wound with practiced indifference. "That blaster hit you when the first ship fired," he muttered, examining the charred skin. "You redirected shields to cover the engines instead of yourself. There was no point protecting what's disposable." He ignored the sting of those words and pulled out a coagulant injector. "Hold still." Her muscles tensed as he administered the compound. Her skin radiated heat, as if energy still pulsed beneath the surface. "You bleed like the rest of us," he said. She gave a low chuckle. Some would disagree. Riker applied pressure with a sterile pad. The wound hissed against the fabric but sealed quickly. He noticed metallic nodes embedded beneath her skin. Implants, buried so deep, only advanced scans could detect them. "You've been enhanced." Kaleth nodded once. "Engineered, trained, released." "For what?" "Elimination. Royal. Protection. Political correction." His hand paused. "You were an executioner." "No." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I was the fail-safe." She wrapped gauze around her arm, movements precise and unfazed by pain. Riker watched the way she reassembled herself, layer after layer, like armor that couldn't be removed anymore. "They said you killed your Empress." "I didn't." Her tone didn't rise. It flattened. "But someone had to be blamed." He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "You're on the run from your own people." "Not all of them." Her eyes met his, pale silver, stormlit, unshaking. "Just the ones who buried the truth." And you're planning to expose it? Kalith replaced her tunic and adjusted the collar, the gesture mechanical. Not yet, but I will. He looked at her, saw more than the cold efficiency she wore like a cloak. Beneath it, something else stirred. Wounded pride, betrayed loyalty, a fire barely contained. Why not run? He asked. Because someone has to remember what was lost. She stood, towering slightly over him. Silence is permission. Riker exhaled through his nose. You could have let me die out there. You were useful, he smirked. Charming. Kalith stepped past him but paused at the door. Your humor is a mask. So is your control. Her head turned slightly. At least I know mine exists. Before he could respond, the proximity alarm pinged again, soft but persistent. He moved to the cockpit, Kalith close behind. The console displayed a ship approaching, small, cloaked in scrap metal shielding, broadcasting no signal. A mercenary design. They're tailing from the rift, Riker said. Must have tracked our jump vector. Kalith studied the readings. They haven't locked weapons yet, probably gathering data. We can't take another firefight. You're injured. I'm operational. That's not the same as unbreakable. She turned, eyes narrowing. Don't confuse concern with hesitation, Riker. I'm not concerned, he snapped. I'm responsible for my ship, and I'm not your passenger. You didn't buy me. You think I don't know that? She walked closer, stopping inches from his chest. I think you've been trying to decide whether I'm a threat or a second chance. His hands dropped to his sides. I'm trying to stay alive, that's all. Then don't doubt me. Doubt will get you killed. The console beeped again, 2 more vessels joining the first. Riker swore under his breath. 3 of them. We won't survive a direct fight. Kalith's expression shifted. Not fear. Calculation. There's an access point nearby, abandoned listening array hidden inside an asteroid cluster. We can reach it with a low-output burn and lose them in the field. He looked at her. You memorize local arrays? I scanned the route while you were docking. He blinked. Of course you did. She was already keying in coordinates, bypassing formal navigation locks. You trust that route? He asked. No. Her fingers moved swiftly. I trust myself. Riker adjusted the ship's course manually. What happens when they corner us again? Kalith didn't answer immediately. Then she said, Then I stop hiding. The ship banked right, thrusters dimming, sliding toward the asteroid ring. The cloaked ships followed at a distance, unaware they were being lured. Riker stole a glance at her, calm, poised, yet bristling with something coiled and sharp beneath the surface. She wasn't afraid of them. She was waiting. You didn't answer my question earlier, he murmured. She kept her gaze on the stars. Which one? What are you? Kalith's lips curled slightly. Not a smile, not a threat. Something older. I'm the shadow they couldn't kill. And now you are the only one who knows I still exist. He stared ahead, hands tightening on the controls. For the first time in years, Riker Vale wasn't sure if he was the pilot of his own fate anymore, or simply along for the ride beside something far more dangerous than war. The asteroid field swallowed Wraithburn in a storm of silent rocks. Each tumbling mass, a collision waiting to happen. Jagged shadows slid across the hull as Riker threaded the ship through narrow passes, his knuckles white against the flight yoke. Sensors flickered intermittently, overloaded by magnetic interference. Behind him, Kalith moved with eerie calm, recalibrating shield pulses in sync with the shifting debris. They're falling back, he said, eyeing the radar. But they'll circle around. We've got minutes, not hours. Enough time, she replied, eyes fixed on a point in the distance. There's a signal ahead. It matches pre-collapse Imperial codes. A relay beacon? A forgotten one. They used these to move encrypted intelligence before the war. If it's still functional, I can access buried logs, proof of what happened. Riker didn't argue. He adjusted their path toward the largest asteroid, a lopsided chunk marked by ancient drill scars and broken antennae. The remains of a beacon array clung to its surface like old bone, rusted but intact. He set the ship down on a level shelf, landing gear hissing against ancient rock. Gravity stabilizers kicked in, anchoring them in place. Kalith was already at the hatch, securing twin blades to her back. Riker checked his pulse pistol, locked the safeties off, and followed her out. The void outside was silent, except for the faint vibration of their boots on metal. Dust lifted in slow motion, never quite settling. The beacon structure loomed above them, half buried in mineral deposits and time. Inside, darkness clung to every surface. The atmosphere had long since bled out. They activated helmet lights, beams cutting through the gloom. Machinery whined faintly as Kalith interfaced with a decaying terminal, her fingers moving like she'd done this 1,000 times. "What are you hoping to find?" he asked, sweeping his weapon across the room. "A name," she said, "the one who forged the order that ended the Empress's life." Riker watched her work. She didn't hesitate once. Lines of code bloomed across cracked glass, old commands reawakening under her guidance. He felt it again, that quiet certainty that she was more than memory allowed. The screen flashed green. She leaned closer. There. Data dump from the inner. Court. A hard clang echoed behind them. Riker turned, gun raised. Nothing visible. Kalith stiffened. "We're not alone." Lights snapped on. A blast shield slammed down over the exit. Riker's instincts screamed too late. Figures stepped from the shadows. 6 total, armored, rifles raised. At their head stood a man in black exo-weave, helmet under one arm, pale scar running across, his jaw like a strike of lightning. "Hello, Kalith," he said. She didn't move. "Talon." Riker kept his aim steady. "Friend of yours?" "Apprentice," she answered. "He was assigned to me before the coup." Talon smirked. "You trained me well. I tracked your jump signature through 3 systems. You turned. I survived," he corrected. "You refused to adapt." "I adapted." Kalith stepped forward, gaze cold. "You killed loyalists, framed innocents." "I preserved stability. The Empress was weak. Her death accelerated our survival. You murdered a dynasty." "I obeyed." "The new order." Riker fired first. Talon dropped, rolling behind a console as gunfire erupted. Kalith vanished into shadow, her movement a blur. 2 guards fell before they even turned. Riker ducked behind a console as return shots blasted metal into molten sparks. Kalith reappeared behind an assailant, blade flashing, cutting silence into screams. Another dropped beside Riker, twitching as smoke rose from his armor. Talon shouted above the chaos, "You can't undo it, Kalith! The world moved on!" Kalith surged forward, blade locking against his rifle. Sparks flew as steel met alloy. They moved like dancers, trained, lethal, perfectly matched. Riker took out another guard, then watched, breath tight, as Kalith pivoted beneath a strike and drove her weapon through Talon's side. He staggered back, blood spilling into zero gravity. "She'll kill you too, Riker," he rasped. "That's what she was made for." Riker stepped forward, gun raised. "I've met worse." Talon collapsed, head hitting the floor with a dull thud. Kalith turned away, chest rising fast. Her eyes burned, not with victory, but old wounds reopened. "He was a child when I trained him," she said quietly. "He believed in something pure. I watched that be twisted into something hollow." Riker stepped closer. "You don't have to carry that weight alone." She met his gaze. "Who else can bear it?" He looked around. The data core still pulsed faintly, waiting. "We have what we came for." Kalith nodded. "Everything we need to expose the truth." They returned to Wraithburn without speaking. the silence heavier than gunfire. Inside, she uploaded the files into a secure node. Names appeared. Officials, generals, family members, all complicit. Riker watched her shoulders tense as faces flickered on the screen. "Your own blood," he said. "Cousins, uncles, every one of them signed off on my death." He stepped beside her. "And now? Now I make sure none of them wear crowns again." He reached for her hand, surprised when she didn't pull away. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Kalith didn't answer, but her fingers curled around his. Outside the viewport, the asteroid field drifted, silent and eternal. Inside, the storm prepared to rise. Wraithburn cut through the void like a wound refusing to close. Faint tremors shivered through the hull as the engines strained against gravitational tides near the collapsed moon of Sorinth. Riker adjusted thruster output, sweat streaking down his temple as magnetic waves battered the ship's stabilizers. Behind him, Kalith knelt by the access terminal, guiding the encrypted data into a containment drive. The files retrieved from the beacon had revealed names, betrayals, and a single location. An abandoned command vault buried inside Sorinth's broken core where the original assassination orders had originated. They would find the last piece, there. The vault entrance shimmered on the scanner, a fading signal buried beneath fractured stone and volcanic ash. Riker brought the ship into a descending spiral, weaving between molten ridges and unstable air pockets. The landing gear groaned against scorched rock as they touched down on a narrow ledge. He exhaled slowly. "We're in range. But this place looks like it's falling apart." "Because it is," Kalith replied, sliding her blades into their sheaths. "The core's destabilizing. Once active, the vault will trigger geothermal collapse." Riker's eyebrows lifted. "So we're breaking into a crumbling death trap." Only briefly. He followed her through the lower ramp. Sulfur clung to the air, the ground beneath their boots hot enough to warp unshielded metal. Steam vents hissed across jagged cliffs, and every sound echoed like the growl of a dying beast. Kalith moved with certainty, following faint residual markers only her training would recognize. They reached a narrow fissure sealed by a circular hatch scorched with forgotten sigils. She pressed her palm to the locking mechanism. Lights flared. Briefly, then the door retracted with a reluctant groan. Inside, the chamber pulsed with fading energy. Consoles blinked weakly, systems decades old struggling to remain alive. A single console flickered with fragmented data streams. Kalith approached, her fingers dancing across controls, coaxing the vault to breathe again. "Here," she whispered, voice almost reverent. "This is where they sentenced her." Riker stepped beside her, watching as a projection rose. Grainy visuals showing high-ranking officials, their faces lined with cold certainty, unanimously condemning the Empress as a liability. Her signature had been forged. The kill order had been sent with her seal. "They erased her legacy," Kalith said, barely audible, "and named me the Blade." The room trembled. Warning tones echoed through the vault's walls. Riker checked the scanner. "Tectonic stress rising fast. You said we had time." "I miscalculated." "Fantastic." The ceiling cracked. Molten light spilled through fractures in the rock. Kalith grabbed the containment drive, eyes burning with fury and grief. "We have the proof. Let's move." They sprinted toward the exit, vault walls collapsing behind them. Riker pushed her forward as a support beam dropped. A shockwave sent him sprawling into a steel column. Pain exploded across his chest as something cracked inside. Kalith turned, saw him kneeling, blood at his lips. She ran to him, pulling his arm over her shoulder, dragging him through the breach. Outside, the ledge shuddered violently. Geysers of fire erupted around them, smoke choking the air. She hauled him toward the ship, ignoring the heat searing her skin, her jaw clenched against panic. He stumbled inside the ramp as it lifted, collapsing against the inner wall. Caliph slammed the controls, lifting off just as the ground beneath them fractured into a glowing chasm. Inside the cockpit, warning lights flashed. Riker's breath came shallow, pain spreading like fire under his ribs. I think that blast cracked something important. Caliph didn't speak. She activated autopilot, then knelt beside him. Her hands moved over his chest, scanning, evaluating. Your lungs collapsed. Internal bleeding. If I wait, you die. Don't sugarcoat it, he rasped. She removed a thin vial from her belt, crystal blue liquid swirling inside. This is not medicine. He blinked slowly. Then what is it? She leaned closer, tone flat. A bond serum. Kaleti warriors. Used it during the War of Silence. It ties life to life. Temporarily. Your heartbeat will sync with mine. Sounds like a terrible idea. It's the only one we have. Riker managed a weak grin. You're sure it's safe? No. She opened the vial, pressed her lips to his, and released the contents in a single breath. Cold fire surged through his veins. His back arched. Every nerve lit up. Then stillness. Silence. Then her voice. Inside his thoughts, steady and quiet. Breathe. He did. Color returned to his face. The bleeding stopped. His chest no longer burned with each gasp. She pulled away slowly, her expression unreadable, but her eyes, those impossible eyes, held something raw. I warned you, she said aloud. You saved me once. Now you're mine. He sat up, breathing steady. You bonded with me. I tied our lives together. Your death is mine. For now. Riker stared at her. That's one hell of a promise. Caliph stood, straightened her shoulders. It's not a promise. It's a cost. He followed her gaze to the containment drive, now blinking steadily with every piece of treachery they needed to burn the Empire down. What now? He asked. She looked at him. Not as cargo, not as a tool, but as something far more dangerous. Now we turn the blade they made into something they can't control. Riker rose slowly, eyes never leaving hers. I'm with you. A flicker of something unspoken passed between them. Not trust, not yet. But something deeper. Survival had forged it, and fire had sealed it. Unity Spire loomed in the distance, a citadel of mirrored alloy and humming defense grids suspended above the gas giant Everos. Trade fleets swarmed its perimeter, threading lanes patrolled by coalition gunships. From orbit, it resembled a star-blind eye, watching everything, revealing nothing. Inside Wraithburn, cloaked beneath an outdated mining freighter disguise, Riker adjusted power flow to secondary relays. The borrowed ident codes flickered across the screen, low-grade but believable enough for a supply run. Caliph stood behind him, armored in matte black, the containment drive secured beneath her jacket. This is suicide, he muttered, rerouting. Coolant from the weapons core. It's justice, she answered, fixing her gaze on the docking clamps locking into place. Feels like the same thing. Sometimes they overlap. Air hissed through the corridor as the station's systems scanned their ship. Clearance approved. The ramp lowered. They stepped into polished corridors lined with chrome tiles, security drones hovering overhead. Uniformed officers passed without glancing, too absorbed in routine to notice danger wrapped in human skin. Calith's stride never faltered. She walked like the building belonged to her. Riker followed closely, pulse steady, fingers brushing, the concealed pistol under his coat. They passed checkpoint scanners, Caliph inputting stolen credentials with uncanny timing. Their path led them through quiet government wings into the heart of the administrative core, the Data Ascendant, a 3-story vault housing the Coalition's secure archives. Inside, rows of glowing servers pulsed with streams of encrypted truth. A single access panel stood between silence and revelation. Caliph approached it, inserting the drive. System warnings flared. Encryption layers are adaptive, she said. They're fighting upload protocols. Can you override? I will. Her fingers moved rapidly, keys chiming beneath her touch. Riker watched the entrance. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. A squad of enforcement officers appeared. Expressionless, armed, purposeful. Trouble, Riker said, already pulling. The pistol free. Kalith didn't look away from the panel. You said you'd cover me. I always do. He moved to intercept. The first guard raised his weapon. Riker fired, striking the man's leg before ducking behind a pillar. Shots echoed, shouts rising. Sparks flew from shattered consoles. Kalith didn't flinch. The upload bar crawled upward, 28%, then 36%. A round tore through the wall beside her. She exhaled, forced control through trembling. Lungs! One attacker flanked right. Riker surged forward, catching him with the butt of his weapon. Another advanced. He dropped, spun, and fired twice. The last officer aimed for Kalith. Riker dove into the line of fire, intercepting the shot. With his shoulder, he hit the floor hard. Pain flooded his senses. Kalith turned, eyes wide with something unfamiliar. Fear. You're bleeding, she said. I noticed. You'll die. You'll finish. He smiled. She didn't. Instead, she left the console, crossed the floor, lifted him gently. Blood soaked through his shirt, soaking her palms. She touched his jaw. You fool. Nice to see you too. The console beeped. Upload complete. Kalith looked back. Files were transmitting across the station, across thousands of networks, records of treason, execution orders, false coronations. Faces stared from the screens. Cousins, former allies, names once spoken with trust, now tainted with betrayal. Sirens. Blared. Backup approached. Heavier squads, armored and prepared. Riker coughed, blinking against the haze. Run! Kalith didn't move. I'm not leaving you. You said we were temporary. I lied. She lifted him again, slinging. His arm across her shoulder. Together they staggered toward the maintenance exit behind the server wall. Steam hissed from burst pipes, alarms screaming louder with every step. The ceiling shuddered. Emergency protocols triggering lockdown. They reached a side shaft. Kalith slammed the override. Metal groaned. A hatch opened. She pulled them inside, descending a narrow utility tunnel lit by emergency beacons. Below, hidden in the engineering trench, a maintenance skiff waited, planted days earlier in a contingency no one had expected to use. She eased Riker into the passenger seat, hands trembling now. He winced, but gripped her wrist. You didn't have to come back. I always come back. You said you were made to kill, and I chose not to kill you. The ship lifted. Energy bursts struck the wall behind them as coalition defenders poured into the trench. Kalith slammed the throttle. The skiff surged forward, engines screaming as they threaded through venting corridors and broken ducts. A final charge flung them into open space. In Wraithburn's shadow, the skiff docked. Kalith dragged Riker back into the medical bay, tearing. Open the cabinets. He chuckled weakly through clenched teeth. You're angry. You're reckless. You're not wrong. She injected him with a stabilizer. His breathing slowed. He looked up at her, smirk fading. We did it. Yes. They'll hunt us. Let them. She leaned over him, forehead against his. I was built for silence. They turned me into a blade. You made me into a choice. His hand found hers, weak but steady. You're not a weapon anymore. And you're not a shield. What am I? She smiled, fierce and soft, all at once. The only one who stood between me and oblivion. Outside the viewport, the station glimmered like a wounded star, the truth it once buried now streaking through the galaxy. Inside, 2 lives, bonded by fire, betrayal, and stubborn defiance, prepared for whatever storm would follow, together.